Hi everybody, I'm Granny Cat, and I just love y'all, and I love that you're stopping by, and I hope you come again. But tonight we're talking about freedom of speech, and that's been a real thing close to my heart, and I want y'all to know how important freedom of speech is. So I'm going to be talking about that. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, I'm Granny Cat, and I've worked with a lot of people from different populations, people from mental health, people, children, elderly people, and I've worked in medical and non-medical, and I've led a lot of groups. So, and I've worked as a peer support specialist for many years, and I learned a lot about how peers ought to be treating each other and how staff ought to be treating people too. So anyway, with all the talking I've done over the course of my career, I have found that it is important to be able to speak your mind. And so I just want y'all to know that freedom of speech is it's not just a saying. We hear that thrown around a lot. Freedom of speech, freedom of speech. I got freedom of speech. And sometimes people do it, and then they tell lies about their neighbors, and they do different things, abusive, and that's not what freedom of speech is. So that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight. So our First Amendment rights in the Constitution are speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition. Okay, and I'm going to read some of my stuff from this paper because I'm an elderly lady, and sometimes I forget things, and I think all of this is very important, so bear with me, folks. Anyway, the freedom of speech in the Constitution of the United States was made formal December 15th of 1791. So that is how long we in the United States, all of us, including children, have had the right to freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition. All of those things. It's all part of it, okay? And even the president and Congress cannot take it away. So it gives us the right to express our opinion and our ideas, because we all got a lot of ideas and thoughts, and we may be able to change somebody's mind in government or above us in any kind of executive position, administration. We have a right to go to our boss and supervisor and to tell them what we think about things, or to give a new idea that might improve production or whatever the case may be. So you just all keep that in mind, because the government cannot take that away, because they can get retaliation. There are laws that even Congress and the president cannot take our freedom of speech away. So we have the right of censorship, speaking, writing, sharing, just sharing your opinion or sharing ideas, anything. So, like I said, it stops the government from infringing on these rights, and any political person or administrative person, executive person, none of them have the right to take that away from you. But it can be scary sometimes. It's scary to speak up. Sometimes fear of retaliation, fear of getting fired, fear of losing your place to live, or whatever the case may be. So this is a quote directly from one of the websites that talks about freedom of speech, and this is directly from our government. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, the right of people to peaceably assemble, and the petition of government for a redress of grievances. In other words, you can do it more than once. You can do it until finally you're heard. Finally you see a difference. And the only way you're going to see a difference is if you speak up. All of us. And that's why I'm speaking today. So we also, I have a friend who, he gave me a little quote. I talked to quite a few friends about freedom of speech before I did this tonight. And one of my friends said, freedom of speech can lead to freedom of fists. Okay, so in other words, you go up to somebody and say, your wife is an ugly. No, that's not okay. If you're using freedom of speech to insult your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's husband, whatever, that's not what freedom of speech is about. So pick your battles, folks, because you might be one of the ones that get punched in the face. You never know. But sometimes the rewards of speaking up are greater than the punishment that may be put upon anybody. Because in the end, you're not just helping yourself, but you're helping everybody who could be affected by what you need to speak up about. So sometimes it may be dangerous to have freedom of speech and speak up, but guess what? There is another danger, folks. The danger of losing rights. The danger of not being treated right. So don't let anybody abuse you, your landlord, your boss, your boyfriend, girlfriend, anybody. And you have a right to speak about that. And so here's a list of things that are not included. And I talked a little bit about that. And some of these things are incitement to violence, defamation, which means to talk bad about people just for the sake of doing it. Obscenity, in other words, inserting a lot of naughty language into your insults to somebody. And, that's just not productive. True threats. You can't go threatening around to beat somebody's head in or kick their butt or any of that. That's not freedom of speech. That's just a threat. Okay? Remember that, folks. You don't want to go to jail because you spoke wrong. Okay? And don't use fighting words that just stir people up, and that's just kind of close to incitement to violence. And fraud for commercial use. That's a little bit deeper than defamation, when you talk bad about your neighbor, accusing them of cheating on one another or whatever. This here fraud is for commercial use. In other words, people who are businesses will say sometimes things that are wrong, thinking it's freedom of speech. Well, I can say whatever I want about my product. Not if it's a lie, you don't. Not if it leads people to waste their money, you don't. So just remember, even if it's unpopular, offensive, it is a fundamental right that allows you to have public discourse, private conversations that are necessary, and it protects us all in the democratic process. And thank y'all for being here, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.